Russ, welcome to the Leanpub launch video for the Sovereign Engineer, AI Literacy for Software Professionals. I was wondering if you could take a moment to talk to all of us a little bit about yourself and about your book and what it's about and who it's for.
Wow, wonderful. Okay, so the book is really the culmination of about 3 years worth of exploration with the challenge of how do we develop with AI. So as a software engineer, I think I worked it out at the weekend. I'm 30 years in this industry, pretty much. As somebody that takes a great deal of interest in their craft, loves the collaborative side of it, the collaborative game of doing software engineering, I kept asking myself, as AI began to be a force for a potential force in software engineering, good or bad, not sure yet, but a potential force in it. I got very tired of the same metaphors being brought out of, sort of, well, we're now going to need to review more, and the reviewing is going to be painful, and really the factory can't handle it, the pipelines can't handle it. And I started to look at the situation. Oh, and my favorite one I hated, which was we don't need junior developers anymore. That particularly cut to my soul. And this was a few years ago, really, that I was asking these questions of why are we focused on what AI can replace? Why can't we look at it carefully about what's the best environment for collaboration with it in software engineering? Because I love the collaborative part of it. And I found that as the models were improving, I could do more and more with them and enjoy the collaboration I could achieve. And then I started to talk to some folks who pointed me in the direction. I think Kevlin Henney is a name drop I have to give, because Kevlin was an absolute and is an absolute genius. And we had these phone calls where we talked about language. And one of the things he was talking to me about was I use the word habitat as a place where I work. I've used software engineering as an experimental, scientific, safe space to explore things. And so it's a habitat. I live within it, if you like. And I thought, after speaking with Kevlin, he said, have you read Richard Gabriel's stuff on habitats in the book Patterns of Software? I know it. Embarrassingly, I had not. And then when I did take a look, I was like, this person understood habitats before I came anywhere near this concept or even had this as my personal view of things. And it went from there. It launched into, okay, maybe it's the environment that's the challenge. Maybe it's the conditions of the collaboration. And then eventually I got to know it's the cognition as well. We think differently. Our thought process is different. There's no one that should really be arguing that LLMs are conscious. I don't really subscribe to that particular sales technique, but I do see it as a different way of thinking and a different way of inhabiting something, a world that it can see to some degree. And we can see a different world. Our brains, our cognition have developed very differently. And so, what can we do with with all the cognition in the room? That was the phrase I was using 2 years ago. Is I want to maximize all the cognition in the room, and how do we do that? And it kept coming back to the conditions around it. So you see it in organizations. You see incredibly smart, very creative developers. They move from one organization to another, and they crumble. They go from a place of careful exploration and experimentation. They go to another place where it's crushed out of them, and it's all approval driven. It's all harsh guardrails which you're hitting up against all the time. And I saw the same thing with AI. We bring in AI into our development process, and we're asking it to perform better than us on day one when we don't give it any information about the habitat. We don't tell it how to operate well here. And then I saw somebody else out there mention harness engineering. I didn't have the term at the time, but I saw harness engineering come along. And actually, admittedly, I still don't like the term. I don't see an AI like a horse that I'm trying to harness so I can get it down the road. I see it more as a collaborative partner in what I'm trying to do, and I partner with the teams I work with. And so, but it was a useful term, and it became a useful part of the book. And that was when I probably realized about 6, 8 months ago, I'm getting close to a finish point now. I have a version of the book now I can work with. Of course, during that journey, I also started writing short stories just because I got really bored of most tech books. And I wanted to write stories. I had stories at about 30 years worth of stories. I think I freaked Kevlin out once. I said I've got at least 600, ideas for stories that I've just been keeping in a compost heap of these things at home. And now I'm writing them on my blog because I could write one a day for fun, really. I don't find that difficult. And sometimes something happens in the daily life and I've got to write that story today. But frequently I've just got whatever's the latest one at the top of the heap. And I could then use that. So I could see a writing style that I liked. That helped me get the book to a finish. I didn't want it to be a yet another formulaic tech book. I wanted to have in there stories, metaphors, anything that I could begin to fight against what I see as the toxic metaphors of our industry. I could also bring some of that to bear. My favorite metaphor in the book by a long way is the dance. I try to recalibrate our relationship to AI as a dance, which gave me a great excuse to bring up the Argentine tango, which is something I'd say I'm learning now. I am a little learning it now, but I'm very much hoping to go to Buenos Aires to do a school there in the future to really get good at it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that story about yourself and about your book, and then in the end about your writing style. You kind of encapsulated our podcast kind of structure right there spontaneously, which is very funny in one of these launch videos. Um, uh, I know the book was hard won. You mentioned it was 3 years in the
Mm.
doing, um, and it starts with a great line, which is, "I wrote this book because I kept watching smart people do stupid things with AI." Um, and for the sake of some color and just to give people this sort of dramatic opening, what are one or two of the stupid things you've seen smart people do with AI over the years, besides think they can get away with getting rid of junior engineers?
Yeah, that's always been my favorite. Oh my goodness. The other stupid thing there's a couple I can probably bring to the surface. One of them is the expectations that a model is going to be wonderful in the first 10 minutes when it's walking in blind. I use Thomas Nore's ideas here, right? Where his whole question of what is it like to be a bat? And not what it's like for you as a human with your cognition to be a bat shape, but what is it like to be a bat? So he recalibrated our idea of consciousness. And I thought, well, what is it like to be an LLM that turns up? Well, it's very much like a new starter, but a new starter who thinks a particular way. And, the same mechanisms we would love to be giving new starters, we're now actually starting to do for LLMs so that they can begin to perform well, ideally as quickly as possible, which is ironic considering we never treated humans with that much humanity. But anyway, um, yeah, that sort of stupidity that you allude to there is this feeling that I've watched so many very smart people go, well, I asked it to do X and it did it wrong. And I sit there and go, great, let's learn from that. What could we have told it that would have helped it get it right? And I realized not many people think that way. Most they go like, oh, it's trashy. It's producing slop because I asked it a question and it got it wrong. And that's one of those classic, that's stupid. Of course it got it wrong because it has no idea of your patterns, your procedures, your approaches, your models. It doesn't have your models, your reference frames in your brain. It hasn't got. So what can we do to bring that to it? So that was number one of the most and that was a very common one of seeing great engineers expect so much of a model, more than they would ever expect of a human new starter ever. So that was number one. The other sort of stupid things I see, and this is where I have to hold my hand up because I am that stupid engineer more often than not. And I didn't have a phrase for it when I wrote that first line in the book. I did not have this term, but the term cognitive surrender. By the end of the book, it's a big thing. This idea that the mode of collaborating with an AI is so attractive and so coherent that you can begin to let go of the steering wheel. And Margaret Ann Story and her research team have talked about cognitive debt and how you lose touch with understanding what you have. And then you get to a certain point where you've lost so much touch that you're literally going, yeah, sure, that sounds about right. which we've seen on PRs and things in software engineering. When someone reviews your code, they'll often use LGTM as code for looks good to me. But I always joke with people is, too long didn't read is actually what they're saying.
Right.
Or, or lack context when it had a look, but, seems fine.
Yeah.
Um, and we do that with AI. And the danger is we do it with AI because AI is so convincingly coherent many times with past it's the answers when you look at them very surface level. And eventually I had that moment, 10 p.m. at night. I was asked a question about a particular thing that I was going to be doing. I told the AI, yes, this is what I want. I used a really silly prompt, just a nice short prompt that gave it very little detail. It came up with an enormous specification, which was
Right.
already a smell to say
Mhm.
this is probably wrong.
Yeah.
And I went, yeah, sure, let's do this. Because I was tired and I'd surrendered. I didn't care anymore. I was like, yeah, I'm sure it'll go fine. And then the next morning, I looked at what I had and I'd lost all touch with what I had. I literally couldn't read the code base. I couldn't understand how things work together. I'd lost. I'd surrendered. I'd surrendered my cognition completely. And so I had to drop that whole branch of code and all those tokens and all that investment and all that thought. And it's a real sunk cost fallacy moment because you really feel like you're dropping a lot of stuff. But I had to because I'd left myself behind. And I'm supposed to be good at this, and I'd left myself behind. So there's a lot of techniques in the book I talk about, including many of the things I also put in the accompanying AI literacy superpowers plugin that help you maintain your cognition in the journey. And actually, a great friend of mine, Artie Starr, who's one of Margaret Ann Story's group, Artie talks about maintaining human understanding being an AI's job. Okay, the edge agents, they have the ability to collaborate with us, but one of their core, probably one of their primary concerns is taking us with them. And that completely flipped my switch. It's like, oh, now I realize we have to have tools in there that arguably slow things down, but it's not slowing things down for the sake of it. It's doing it for valuable reasons to take the humans with us on this journey because ultimately they're the navigators, they're the captains of the ship, which is where the software engineer comes in its entirety. So yeah, very long story, short, well, not very short, but a long story perhaps. I've been that dumb person. I've had that cognitive surrender. And yeah, the book also speaks to how to avoid that as well.
And my last question about the book, just to give people a bit of a taste, people, technical people who are diving in.
Mm.
What's a harness? You brought up the term before, but the living harness, the specific sort of use
Mm.
that you make of the term in the book.
Yes, so the harness for me is a set of architectural guidelines, modes of operation, um, probably some additional guardrails and safety rails in there as well. But it's an expression of how an agent should perform, or how the agent should perform, what they should be aware of, how they should perform. But then it gets implemented in a set of control surfaces. So depending which agent you're using, if you're using Claude, there's a set of control surfaces. If you're using Copilot, there's a set of control surfaces. Regardless of what agent you're using, there's a set of ways that these intentions can get applied. So there's a harness that you describe how how you want to set up the environment for the agents. Then there's the control surfaces for how it's applied. And then before that, one of the innovations that the book has and that the AI literacy plugin has is the feed-in loop to it. So the idea is you can detect what an agent does, see what surprises you, see what surprises it. Okay, I always love the opening question. Ask the agent what it sees, and you'll immediately go, "Wow, yeah, you can do nothing here
Yeah.
without because you see almost nothing. Let me help you see some stuff here." So what I do is I call it reflection. And the idea is that you regularly assess what surprised you and you feed that into the harness intentions. And eventually, when you feel ready, you might reflect and align that harness to the control surfaces. So that's where the living harness comes in. It's a continual tuning. It's like a guitar. right? You're
Right.
constantly, if you're anything like me, you're constantly tuning the darn thing. And then you realize it's how you're playing it, not the tuning. But anyway, you're constantly working with the beast and tuning it. And you're doing the same with a harness. You're constantly surprised by what the agent does, or it's surprised by what it sees. You're building a catalog of reflections that you can then use as the raw stuff to tune the harness to give it better chance of being less badly surprising, to then turn that into control surfaces, turn it into the agents.md so that Copilot and Claude picks it up and goes, I get more of what you're looking at here. It also looks into hooks and other different control surfaces that you can apply. Everything through CI/CD as well can be control surfaces. And what you're doing is you're trying to set the harness is there to help the agents work brilliantly with you. And so you're constantly tuning that experience because that's the way it works. As LLMs change, different models, different contexts, different code bases, the harnesses will evolve over time. And so that's why they're living.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this launch video with me for all of us today. The book is The Sovereign Engineer: AI Literacy for Software Professionals by Russ Miles. Thank you very much, Russ, for a great book and for all the time and work and sweat and thought and experience that went into it. I highly recommend it for anyone who's had this experience of sort of like working with LLMs and AIs and going, there's so much more here that if I need more ideas and sort of conceptual frameworks for understanding how to do this. That's one of the big challenges of our time, and this book is a great contribution to that. It's The Sovereign Engineer: AI Literacy for Software Professionals. Thanks very much, Russ, for being here today.
Thank you very much for inviting me on.